So it's my pleasure to introduce Jerry Prentice, who is going to introduce his friend and longtime partner. And Jerry, would you have some smart remarks to make about Dan here?
Before I get into my speech, I think we're going to let Dan do his slideshow, and then I'll come in, because the first part will be his early life in sports that I wasn't around for. So we'll see that first, and then I'll give my impressions, since I hooked up with Dan.
Thank you.
I went to a small Catholic school in Detroit, graduated in '61. That's me on the far right. In 1960, we fielded a team that went 0-8. In 1961, I happened to be quarterback, and we finished 8-0 and won the Catholic City Championship. The guy next to me, Don Buxar, he went to Colorado State and played 4 years of football. I went in the Army. So, go ahead. Here I am playing baseball, not too well. I'm sure you can't pick up the ball, but that was a whiff. So, go ahead. And here I am preparing to dunk the ball in my dreams. Played a little basketball in high school. I was married in...
Comedy? What comedy?
I don't think that was so funny. I was married in '64, divorced in '76, divorced again in '84, and don't ask any questions about that.
Okay, no question.
Luckily for me, I've got 4 young kids, and they're all stand up if you will. They are my pride and joy for sure. And here's on the far right is Casey. He's a Marine in Belle Chasse, Louisiana. He's got, what, 25, 23 years?
26 to the day.
26. And this is my bride. We got married in northern Michigan at I'm sure you've never heard of this river, but it's called the Tittabawassee River. and it was a place where I used to deer hunt. And it's an archery only place, but it was a beautiful ceremony. We turned it into a 3-day affair, and it just came out marvelous. This is my only recollection of work, because I don't even want to think about work anymore. But I won Salesman of the Year twice in my 30-year career. I don't know what kind of odds that had, but I felt good winning it once. But this I want to talk about a little bit. My kids got interested in BMX bike racing in 1981, I think. And I got so bored taking them to bike races that they had a class called the cruiser class, and it was for stupid adults that wanted to bike race. So naturally, I bought a bike and learned how to BMX. And I was first terrible at it, but I got pretty good and had the points lead going into the nationals in Labor Day. I'll lay the groundwork. Labor Day, 1983, Nashville, Tennessee. It was the Grand Nationals. The best of the best got there. The only reason I got there, I was #1 rated in the state of Georgia. So in bike racing, you race 3 motos or preliminary races, and the final 8 out of those 3 motos go to the trophy race. So I'm in the somehow I got in the trophy run for the Grand National Championship of the cruiser class. And coming off of the front gate is very, very steep and fast. And I was, at that time, I was seeded number 8 out of 8 guys. So I got I didn't have a very good post position, and I was against some very good racers. Anyway, I came off of there, I got a good start. We hit the bottom of the hill, and there was 3 of us in the lead, and I was between the first and the third bike. I was the middle bike. After that, it was disaster. The 3 of us crashed. I went straight up in the air and came down, and I was really didn't know what hit me. It just happened so fast. So I got up, and all of a sudden, I heard everybody moaning and groaning from the audience. I mean, it was packed there, and I heard a couple of people say, "Oh my God, oh my God." So I looked down, and I was covered in blood. So I figured, I started to walk down the track like this real slow, and they had 2 ambulances there because everybody was breaking their arms and legs. And a couple of people came running on the track, grabbed me, put me on a gurney, and wheeled me into the first aid tent and said, "We got to get him to the hospital immediately." And I spent 5 days in Nashville Doctors Hospital and 175 stitches before they let me go. But I want to show you something. You think I'm kidding, don't you? Here's a pair of leathers. This is the actual pair of leathers that I raced in that day, and I got, since I worked for Levi's, I got Levi's to sponsor the race team, of which Chris and Casey were a part of. But I want to show you where the accident actually occurred.
Use our imagination.
Can you imagine 175 stitches where you don't want them? That's not the end of the story. The end of the story is that was Labor Day 1983. The doctor says, give up BMX racing, please. So I had one more race, was the Georgia State Championship, and that was supposed to happen 2 weeks before Thanksgiving. And so I went to the doctor, he said, "Can I race in this?" Because I had the points lead going into the race. So I ran my 3 motos and the final one, every single one of them, and that was the end of not only my BMX career, but Casey and Chris, somehow that whole deal soured them on BMX. As a matter of fact, that's the picture right there of what about it? These are the fun things. We did, Rita and I went up to the Great Slave Lake and forget where it was. Great Slave Lake, where?
Northwest Territory.
Northwest Territories, thank you.
My fish was bigger.
Yeah. Yeah, that was about 20, Rita's caught a 22-pounder, I think. Stay tuned, I may need your help. There's a big story to this, but it's too long to tell, but this is an archery kill of a Montana elk.
And we ate him.
And this is a Texas turkey trip that I went on with my good friend Bobby. And fortunately, everybody got a turkey that trip. This is a picture of myself and Bob, and who's now deceased, my dear brother. I have an older brother that's second from the right, and my best man is second from the left. The day before this was taken, it was 70 degrees out. And by 4 o'clock the next day, there was like 22 inches of snow on the ground. And it was quite a trip. I had a lot of fun. This is another story that I won't get into, but this is when I took, yeah, well, I'll get into it. You want to hear it?
Yeah.
My daughter Colleen bought my Eddie, her husband, and myself a Father's Day present. Make a long story short, you could go to this Richard Petty driving school and take 8 laps around the track with other guys at different intervals and see how fast you could actually race the car. And I was a little, I just gotten into NASCAR, and I thought, I'll try it. So she bought the tickets for us, and but before you got in it solo, you had an opportunity for another $100 or so, I forget what it was, to take a trial run with a professional race driver before you soloed. So I said, I'm in. So got in one of these cars. I think mine was a Home Depot car. And they buckled me in, and off we went. And it was the most terrifying 8 laps that I have ever been involved with in my life. I'm a pale guy anyway, I have no color. I came out of there as white as a sheet, and I was scared, excuse me, shitless. I was frightened to death. So we got up and around probably between 140, 150 miles an hour. Where's Eddie? Is that right, Eddie?
A little more, but yeah, that's close.
A little more.
So he stops the car in the pits, and he looked over at me. He says, "How'd you like that?" I says, "I didn't." You scared the hell out of me. He said, "Well, you get to go solo now." I said, "Not a chance." So the director comes over to me and says, "We've only had 3 guys bail out of the solo ride." And I says, "I'm number 4. And that was the end of that. So that was my NASCAR racing career. And something a little bit more friendly that probably Hugh Thompson can relate to. This is our team that we took out to Surprise, Arizona for the tennis. We didn't win, we came in 3rd. Well, this isn't too flattering, but Rita's on the right. I don't know if you can see her. She's got the pink top on, and I'm the body on the right, racing the Peachtree Road Race. Go ahead, Bruce. That says it all right there. That's me on the Great Slave Night taking a nap. Those are the 3 grandsons. Mark, Tim, where's Dave?
Dave, you're up.
Hey, there he is.
Good timing, Dave. This was taken last summer, Rita? At Hilton Head, we usually go to Hilton Head at least once a year, and you can see how much they've grown up. Great kids. This is Cam, and I were in the fire truck. I played the chief, and of course he's a whiny little brat. He was okay. That's Gabe at Halloween.
Thanksgiving.
Close. Halloween, Thanksgiving. This is when I took Park, teach him a little bit about racquetball, but of course he said my grip was all wrong, and he's probably right about that. This is another trip to Hilton Head, and it was at a sandcastle building. This isn't too, I tried to get this out of there, that's how.
Try harder.
Yeah. Good one. I don't know about that, but I'll take it. I think this is my very first tennis match that I ever won. This is a good one. This is when the Braves were good, and we went to the World Series, so I don't know which one of the kids I took, but I figured if I'm going to talk them having their face painted, I better have mine done. And Rita and I spent vacation in Paris during the French Open, and that was a really, really good trip. This was my first state championship that I won. I think it was 19. I'm guessing I think it was 91.
99.
89?
99.
Close. 99.
You're old.
99, 89.
I went to visit Casey, the Marine, in Belle Chase, Louisiana, on the way to Houston, and I just did. The only reason I went to Houston is because I was going to be halfway there, and I thought, well, I'll go play the national singles, and ended up winning it. What a surprise. That was in 2003. And Rita and I in Allentown, with my two sisters, Nancy and Susie, God love them. This is Don Gunderson giving me instructions on how to hit a drive serve. I don't know if you remember Don Gunderson, but he's still playing. These are some of my former partners. That's Mitch, and Mike, Patrick Taylor, here with the card, and of course my current one, Jerry, and I hope I don't have any other partners because you're the best. That wasn't too boring for you.
I've had mistakes. I've made a few.
I want to thank everybody that had anything to do with me coming out. I want to personally thank Lynn Sonnenberg for helping me through this. It's been a little bit of an ordeal trying to put it together since we found out last June or July. And I'd like to thank him. I want to thank the board of directors. I want to thank all the voters that I sent $50 bills to them, and they cooperated. It helped. You thought I was through, didn't you? There's a little story about a guy named Butch who was stranded on his roof during the floodwaters of Hurricane Katrina. Pickup that was passing by, picking up stragglers, wandered and yelled over to Butch and offered him a ride, get him off the roof. Butch says, "No, thank you, I'll be all right. God will save me." About an hour later, a man in a boat came by and offered to rescue him from the now fast disappearing roof. Butch declines once more. "Thank you anyway. God will save me." Very short time later, a helicopter comes along, drops a ladder down to Butch, and offers to rescue him. Butch said declines a third time and says, "No, thank you. God is right around the bend in the river. I'm sure of it." Guess what? Butch drowns. Thankfully, this is the best part, Butch goes to heaven and meets St. Peter at the gates. "Welcome, my son," says St. Peter. Butch demands a sit-down with God immediately. All of a sudden, right on cue, God appears. He says to Butch, "Is there a problem here?" And Butch says, "You bet there is. I wasn't ready to die. Where were you?" God says, "Whoa, wait a minute." He says, "I sent a pickup truck for you. You turned it down. I sent a boat to you. You said, no, thank you. I finally sent a helicopter after you. And you still said no." That's the end of the story, but it's the beginning of another one. 1980, I was muddling through severe alcoholism and at the tail end of a bad marriage. And my weight had ballooned somewhere between, well, who cares between? It was around 240. That's the truth. 3 things happened to me around that time, and I call it divine providence. Number 1, I was driving around in my brand new Dodge Maxi van, beer in hand, of course, and one day pulled into the parking lot of a brand new racquetball and tennis facility. I went inside and watched some guys playing racquetball and said to myself, I was mesmerized by it. And I thought to myself, I can do that. And he said, and the rest was history. Number 2, while at Leisure Point, that was the name of the club, I signed up to play in a mixed doubles tennis league at a very low level. I was a virtual beginner. Hugh Thompson was nowhere around. I was assigned a partner for our first match. Her name was Rita. I thought she was the most beautiful girl I'd ever seen, and I was totally smitten, and still am today. Don't cry. It was 25 degrees out that day and a howling wind during our first match. After the match, I invited her to join me in my beautiful Dodge Maxi van. And she accepted. Without getting into the salacious details, the rest is history. Number 3, I tried probably, and I'm not sure about this, but I'm close, I tried to quit drinking at least 6 times in my life, and I had very mixed results. Now I had some incentive. 1 was racquetball, and 2 was Rita. They both saved my life. It's now been 36 years since I stopped drinking, And it's been probably 35 years that Rita and I have been together. Thank you, Racquetball. Thank you, Rita. And thank you, God.
That's a tough act to follow.
Jerry, move over just a little bit. Speaker.
When I was asked to speak about Dan, first thing I did, I said, this is going to be easy. I haven't given a public speech since 1970-some. But my youngest boy, he travels worldwide giving speeches and gets paid for it. So I figured, and he's a professor of creative writing. So I figured this will be easy. But little did I know, number one, I'm going to follow Dan Jones. And number two, when I called him, he said, Dad, the first thing most speakers do is they open the crowd up with a joke. He said, being your son, don't do a joke. We have to tell you when it's a joke. So now I have Dan, who's a natural speaker. First thing I'd like to say is thank the Masters Association, all the top-ranked people here, but also I'd really like to thank, and seems a little strange, all the competitors, and especially the ones that are the hardest to beat. Because they make us, we all want to go, we all want to be champions, but they just keep us coming back. And here I am at 72 years old, thinking that I'm a 14-year-old racquetball player. I'm going to quickly get to Dan, but I'd like to say probably all of us here, we started in sports somewhere, maybe early teens, maybe before, in some kind of school, maybe in the military, picking up racquetball and whatever. I transitioned from all different sports to just before racquetball, handball, paddleball, and then I found out about racquetball, and I say, wow, I can go in 4 walls, hit the ball, and I don't have to chase it on a 1-wall court. So I was introduced, I was hooked. Of course, we get older, and what happened and why it's so important for the Masters to continue is because now I still enter tournaments, and where do I end up in the 50s? It's hard to get 60s, and nevertheless, no more 70s. So I play in the 50s or the A's, which is still competitive and all. But this is very, very important, and I have the opportunity to thank you all and hope this continues on. The first tournament I went to was with the Masters. Some of our local players that you know, Dan Schaefer and Neil Eichelberger used to go. They dragged me to Canton, Ohio, and that would be in the 65s. It's tough for any of us here to get a partner to travel. Number one, there's an expense. Number two, they want to travel. A lot of people don't, they're just not interested. So we went, I was hooked on it. A couple of years later, I just kind of forgot about it. It came to Allentown, which was our home club, which is now bankrupt. But played there, and that's my first encounter with Dan Jones. I played against him, and after the tournament, I had definitely an impression already about Dan. I've been involved in sports my whole life, and I said, that fella is a winner. I coached many, many sports. Some of the athletes that I coached went on to be considered the best in the world in their sport that I coached them at. So I think I know what good attributes a athlete has. So here I'm trying to think. The next tournament was North Carolina. Dan was there. He was playing, forget, I think it was Kevin Dewar at the time. I was there, my partner, you have to struggle to talk them into it. Going to North Carolina, we did fine, nothing great. But I played against Dan again. And first of all, Dan, 2 times now in our history, I don't know if Dan knows this, he's had to explain to me that he told me a joke, just like my kids. So I don't get the joke from Dan sometimes, and I don't get it from my kids. So after that, I left, and I stopped going again, and then I think in North Carolina we had it 3 times, I believe. So the 3rd time comes, I'm all ready to go. I talk the guy, you know, it's an effort to talk the partner into going, because how many people in your club now? 70. Are you going? You hardly have any players. He's going to go. He's going to go. We're down to the last week. You know, I have to know. I figure, well, I'll just play singles if I have to. The last week, he says, Jerry, I'm not going. That's it. So I look through the draw, and I'm saying, who of all the 70s, because there were quite a few at that time, and I see Dan Jones, and I said, that's a good match for me. If there's a player I want to play with, it's Dan Jones. I'm going to say I don't know Dan's history other than all the medals he did win. I don't know how many doubles you won at that point, but I figured that we could be a team, we could win. Well, I would say in our age group, well, before I get to our record in our age group, I call up Dan, and well, I didn't call up Dan. They don't have a phone book in the Masters like they used to, so I knew he was from Atlanta, so I called 3 Dan Joneses in the Atlanta area, and they still had, at that point, all 3 had phones with answering machines. So I left a message on 3 answering machines. If you are the Dan Jones who plays racquetball, please call me. I'm Jerry Prentice. We played against each other. 2 hours, 3 hours later, I'll never forget where I was, because this was very important to me. We were just leaving a pool, a beautiful day. Dan calls back. I am Dan Jones, the racquetball player. So now I am happy. At least I got a call back. I said, Dan, look, I tell him the story. I said, would you like to go? And then the deadline was maybe a Tuesday or something, like 3 days later. He says, well, let me think about it. I'll call you back tomorrow. 2 hours later, Dan calls back and he says, I'm in. I think this is going to work. So we go to North Carolina. At the dinner on the Wednesday night, or the thing where you pick up all your stuff, Dan and I talked briefly, and Dan said, what would you like to play, backhand, forehand? I said, I can play either. What do you want to do? He said, I can play either. I said, you play the backhand, we'll see how it goes. If there's a problem, we'll change. We walked on that court, never practicing, just playing against each other a couple of times. 28 matches later, in our age group, we didn't lose a match. Now, I go back to where I've coached all these different people. So now, I'm an athlete, I'm a former coach. Being next to Dan and seeing him with all the same attributes that these great athletes have, and without going through a long history, to keep you too much longer, we have some pretty tough opponents this week. And there's Leo and Steve. We played them every other hour for 3 days. Cindy would say, go play them. Today, we were down. We're getting killed at the beginning of one. Dan's on the left side, playing the backhand as usual. And we came back, and I probably may get the story right, but finally, these have been our toughest competitors. They're big-time winners. You know, I have nightmares about them, but we beat them sometime today, I think it was. We got them. So I want to thank everybody. And Dan, I am in for life as long as we can do this. One last thing, I've had a lot of partners, I've been on a lot of teams, I've been in individual sports. This is the most pleasure, and think about it, Dan and I really didn't even get to know each other till 70. From two totally different backgrounds, we become, I feel, very close friends. He has a great family. Another little interesting side note, my son lives in Colorado. When we're out in Denver, he meets Dan's son, who has a house, Chris, who has a house. They have become, the feeling from my son, and I think from Chris, they are now very close friends. And of course, they ride on their racing motorcycles all the time, just what we're happy about. So I could go through all the good qualities of Dan. He's got everything as an athlete should have, and he has everything as a family man, a friend, and I'm just proud that at 70 years old, this happened. Awesome. Dan, congratulations. And I'll turn it over to whoever gets turned over to.
Hang on a second.
Go the other way, go the other way, go the other way. Step over this.
And we have this very nice sweatshirt for you. Cindy?
I'm coming.
What size do you need? Just in.
Yes. You're on there. You're going to be on there.
Gonna be.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thanks for the speech. You want some alone? Yeah. We'll get out of your way.
The only other thing is the slideshow, but you got to do the raffle. You got to do the.
Oh, yeah, thanks. Okay. The pictures, we can take pictures later. Congratulations, Dan. Well deserved. We'll have another fun for you, too, individual one.